So basically, this is the end of Bio-Ontologies today, and we will continue tomorrow, but we will use the last 30 minutes for anybody who would like to stay, to have some community discussions. So we have basically today and tomorrow to get some feedback from the community. So far, Bio-Ontologies has been organized for this year and also the last year and maybe some years before by 4 people. Nuria and Tiffany and Maksat, who are not here in person, Maksat, who is online, and myself. And one thing that we really want to get is some feedback from you, what we should do differently, if anything at all. So just for maybe to start off this discussion, Bio-Ontologies is the oldest COSI at ISMB. So the first Bio-Ontologies was 1998. So it's 27 years. BOSC is 25 years. So this is the oldest COSI that is still running. We are about to get to 30 years, but I can tell you that we have also had quite a declining number of submissions. So we get from ISMB every year the number of people who are interested in Bio-Ontologies and who register, and all of you have this badge, which I didn't get this year. So this is pretty stable. So the number of people who are interested in Bio-Ontologies and who attend is pretty stable. But the number of submissions is not, so this has been declining. This year we have again 2 proceedings papers, which is quite a lot. Some years in the past, in the last 4 years or so, there were 2 years where we had none. We had a discussion amongst the organizers whether to have Bio-Ontologies at all this year, or simply to let it, to shut it down. We decided to have it this year and then have a discussion, and a relatively open discussion with all of you, to see whether we should keep it running, because there are clearly still some domains and some applications where ontologies and development of ontologies and methods involving ontologies are important. But in many areas, ontologies are quite mature, and we don't get many submissions from them anymore, because 27 years of Bio-Ontologies, I mean, not just here at ISMB, obviously has created an ecosystem of ontologies and of methods for developing ontologies, well, which is very rich. You have over 1,000 ontologies in BioPortal now. So there's still some need, but it's clearly diminishing. So what we would like to get from the community, I think, is what you think we should do, how you see Bio-Ontologies in the future. Would you want a Bio-Ontologies next year at ISMB? And is there something we should change? This is, I think, the main theme that we are interested in. Of course, we can also discuss, but in my mind, but maybe I'm wrong, and please feel free to change this, we can also discuss the organizers. It's always important for other new people to join the organizing team if you want another Bio-Ontologies. So this is kind of the big question that we as organizers have been discussing, not just this year, but over. I remember when I joined Michel de Montier, I think this was 6, 7, or 8 years ago, a long time ago, as a co-organizer of Bio-Ontologies. Already we started discussing what is going to be the future of it when we had the 20th year celebration of Bio-Ontologies. We started discussing, shall we have more Bio-Ontologies? So this discussion is still there, and we don't really have a good answer. Yeah, I'm not sure. Please, please come. Maybe just so there's still some people who are online, so please maybe you can just, you don't have to stand here, but you can take maybe the microphone and.
I don't have any huge suggestion. I'm just saying this is no time to shut down Bio-Ontologies. Yeah. Because of all these quality issues that have been raised, and the emergence of LLMs in the research space. So I haven't really continued. I first did a talk here in Edmonton in 2002. I was a postdoc in Larry Hunter's lab at the time. since I've gone independent, I've not continued with ontologies, but I'm one of those people who have always identified this as an area of interest. So I'm one of those who have declined in terms of specific ontology work, but I think this is important for so many reasons. So I'm just here to say, don't shut it down.
Okay, so very positive voice, thank you. I mean, anybody else? Because there's, of course, LLMs. There are a lot of new things that are happening in science, not just in bioinformatics. But we didn't get many LLM papers this year in Bio-Ontologies. So we get a lot of mentions of LLMs, but we didn't get a paper or a submission about LLMs. So there are some, but they don't come here. So there are some papers. There's this Dragon AI by Chris Mungel's group, and there's a lot of curation work, ontology engineering work that uses LLMs, not here. So this is kind of the observation that we had. It's just not here. So it happens, and I'm not sure. It might be that we are doing something wrong, or maybe it's just not the place here. My personal feeling is that ontology engineering work doesn't happen at ISMB because it's so much about bioinformatics, or it happens less at ISMB. It's a lot about the application and how ontologies can solve specific biological problems, including ontology engineering, to solve some data integration or nomenclature problem, which is very specific. And just engineering as a method, which is where a lot of LLM work is happening, including, I don't know, some of you will know this Dragon AI paper, probably a lot of you have seen the preprint. And similar work, it might not fit very well in ISMB just because it's a bioinformatic conference. So rightfully so, it's not so much, it's more an ontology problem than a bioinformatics problem. Whereas this is about, or the people who come here, we solve biological problems by the work that they do, including data integration problems. So data integration problems, we have heard all of this. And that's not where LLMs are yet, but we had one proceedings paper, which was LLM work, and it was very, very interesting for ontology curation. So this was one proceedings paper. And please come. I mean, I'm not sure, we don't have really a discussion thing, but it's not even, I don't want to moderate it because it's very spontaneous. I'm just trying to tell you what we as organizers have been discussing, please.
Yeah, I was just thinking that maybe something that could be explored is the scope of bio-ontologies. I mean, it's a recurring discussion I have with other people in ISMB about, you know, ontologies and how, you know, how they perceive it as a community which is a bit out of the rest. I don't know how to, you know, to say it nicely, because obviously I include myself a bit in that, but there's something to be done to you know, to there's an opportunity for bio-ontologies to build this bridge with the rest of bioinformatics. You're right when you're saying that, you know, there are other places where ontologies are nowadays discussed, and that's true. But really, the opportunity within ISMB is to have that bridge with people who are also not primarily 100% ontologists. And it's important because ontologies themselves, if they're not used by life science communities, I'm sorry, but they're useless.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Okay. So, as a former builder of knowledge representations, and I'm a recovering builder of knowledge. And I'm very deep into the LLMs right now. I came for your talk, but I didn't. I would generally expect a hostile reaction from ontologists, and that I have a number of problems with the idea of ontologies being the one right ontology, the one right at representation. And I would say that Go is amazing. Go is a wonderful thing. I was at the second Go meeting, and I had previously been on the Psych project in the 90s. I don't know how many people know Psych. Okay. And an attempt to build a massive ontology. And I heard Go plans, and I almost stood up and told them all of the things they weren't doing and how they weren't serving all the hard cases, blah, blah, blah. And I realized and stopped myself that they needed to do something. They needed to get somewhere. And they did. They made the right choice. However, I do not think that I think it is time to move on from the idea of single ontologies. That anything that is not going to be the right representation for all cases. That you have, and you can't even get into the really ugly stuff of proteoforms stuff. As soon as you start expanding that world, expect to do curation on it. I'm sorry, we do not have time and space in the world to curate that stuff. So where are we going to go? I believe that the magic boxes, these LLMs, provide us an opportunity to get our hands on some of that and do something useful. But it's going to have to be driven by real world needs, because we got to ground it in something. So what are the problems we really need to solve that aren't being solved now, that potentially can be solved by formalisms? And so I could rant on about some of my ideas for how to do that, but I'm getting up here to more be the critic and saying, yeah, I don't come to these sessions except occasionally, because I need to get real world work done. And I use, it's easier for me to spin up a knowledge representation appropriate to my problem than it is for me to cope with grinding through a complex, some huge amount of assumptions about the world that I have to come up to speed on in order to see whether or not they apply to what I'm doing, and then debug the parts where I disagree and they're not appropriate for what I'm trying to do. So anyway, there are my inflammatory comments.
Yeah. Please. Can the camera be turned towards the audience? Can it?
Having a data agnostic methodology, I worked in building other ontologies. And I always come back to the Bio-Ontologies community for lessons learned. I think having been the longest running session here, and so much expertise and sweat and tears going into building these Bio-Ontologies, I think there's a lot that's learned. One thing maybe to try and connect with the other ontology communities, or have people who can create bridges, because I had to really pick between being here in Netherlands and I'm sure a number of people had to too, and I don't think that's fair to ask of everyone who may be interested in this. Having said that, I think it will be a huge loss in losing the Bio-Ontologies COSI at the ISMB.
Please.
Being new to bio-ontologies, I love ontologies, and I would say I wonder if there's a way to expand it to not just bio-ontologies, and knowledge representation. And this idea of a little bit broadening it out, which I see your face. And I also read the mission, right, of like what it's about. And it does kind of say this idea of representation and dissemination and all these things, but making that a bigger part of the higher level that could get at things that our people are representing in different ways. I don't know. It's an idea, not saying it has to happen.
No, I'm very sorry, because I actually want to listen, not to comment, but I mean, just a little bit on the history of bio-ontologies, right? Because bio-ontologies, yes, there was like this urgent need in 1998, basically, to build anything, exactly, to build anything. And I mean, the organizers, Russ Altman, Stefan Schulz-Kramer, they were the first organizers, and David Bennett, the fourth one, I forgot. But anyway, SRI now, Metapsych, Peter Karp. Fourth organizer. So they were the ones who created this COSI in 1998. And of course, there was this huge need. And then at the mid-2000s or so, a lot was created, Go was there. And then there was a lot of, so I went to this meeting, and I think this is where this comment comes from, that we are a little bit isolated and kind of a bit awkward. As a community, there was a lot of, for years, we had a lot of philosophy discussions. We had philosophy talks. They were not related to bioinformatics at all. And then this philosophy community created another conference called IGBO, and a lot of this moved there. And they left. They're not here. And sometimes they're here. They don't really talk about this anymore. So they talk about bioinformatics again, which is very nice. So, and there's still some interesting philosophy work, and it's not just philosophy. I mean, I don't want to diminish it, but it's all about ontology engineering. So the science of ontology engineering, and philosophy is maybe a part of it. But this is, I think, where a little bit of, this is the strange community, because we had a lot of philosophy talks here for years. But I don't think they're here anymore. We don't have this. And then we broadened to knowledge representation, knowledge graphs, machine learning, knowledge enhanced learning. It's a lot of ontology work and knowledge representation. In principle, it's all there. We don't get so many papers or submissions. And a lot of people don't submit here, because if you do this, you do it in an application which is going to be about microbes, or it's going to be about disease, and you go to some disease-related COSI, or you go to some microbe COSI, because it's not so much about the method itself. Doesn't matter so much, and it doesn't come from here. It goes. You go to the application, and then you go to the other COSI. Now, we had in the past, and we should probably do this. So the last 2 years, we always had a joint session with BOSC, which is very applied. And there are other COSIs that we can have joint sessions with. We used to have BioLink, joint sessions with BioLink, which was the text mining COSI, which doesn't exist. And now there's another text mining COSI, which we didn't reach out to. And there's the function COSI, which we are very related to. It's all about functions and Go function prediction and other kind of ontology-based predictions. So it's all about machine learning and so on with ontologies. So we haven't reached out to them. And then there are many other areas. So there's this whole, we had a phenotype day some time ago, which was very related to the very COSI, variation COSI. So there are many ways to reach out. And I think this is, we should use this ISMB to find some partners, and we could basically have joint sessions with many of them, with functions, with microbe, because we have a lot of this joint work here. So microbiome COSI and variation COSI. In the future, we should reach out. It's BioVis, and we don't have. I know that Robert Stevens, he used to come here a lot, and he was so interested in visualization. He had actually had wonderful talks about this, but we didn't have a talk about visualization for a very long time. And I haven't seen much research in visualizing ontologies, but yes, we should definitely talk to them. And that is a very good suggestion. And yeah, please come here. You can also face the audience. Yeah, just turn it around. So you don't, it's not it shouldn't be a one-on-one.
All right, I'm new here, but I just want to expand on what Hande was saying earlier about ontology maintenance. One of the big problems that I run into in the drug discovery area is we've got these really great resources like bioassay ontology, cell line ontology, and many others, and they're basically abandonware, and they're on a GitHub site somewhere, and trying to get people to add new terms to them is like pulling teeth because the funding is gone. Right? They had a couple of years with plenty of people working on it. They've made something great that's really useful. But if we could maybe make some of the interest for this group in figuring out how to make these things actually keep up to date with the times, because science is moving and the ontologies are not. At least some of them, the ones that are relevant to my work, really haven't changed for years.
Hi, I work for U.S. federal government, specifically for Environmental Protection Agency. So in short, I think we should keep this COSI going. There are a couple of reasons why we should. For one, for some reason, most of the ontology conferences are held in Europe. It's very hard for us as federal employees to go to Europe. It's even difficult for me to come to Canada. There are so many red tapes we have to go through, so many restrictions we have to clear. Two, I feel like I have been to ICBO, another ontology conference, a couple of times. ICBO conference is very small, it's very theoretical, it's very much about ontology engineering. Well, for me personally, I'm more interested in the applications of ontology. We deal with chemicals, we deal with toxicities. And I was talking to Robert earlier. We have an ecotoxicology database, which has been going on since 1980s, where we systematically annotate tens of thousands of publications about chemical toxicities. Because of these chemical toxicity studies are all based on individual chemicals, it's hard for us to draw connections across chemicals, how chemicals impact different species, how different chemicals interact with one another. So we have been proposing to EPA, we should sematicize this database in order to facilitate knowledge discovery, in order to discover toxicities from what we know already. We can't test all of them. So I very much hope for that this COSI will be an application-driven group where we can discuss how we can use different approaches in knowledge representation, in knowledge discovery to actually solve a problem. I'm not interested in personally to develop ontology in itself. I'm interested in how to apply this kind of approach to solve a real world problem. That's where I feel like at least ISMB is held in North America half of the time. I get a chance to come. Otherwise, if it's some other conference overseas, I can't even go. So that's my kind of a selfish opinion.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else has a comment for us? Okay, so I think we are also nearing the end of today. It's been a long day. For some of you, the first day, for some of you, the second day of ISMB. So there is the additional issue that if you want to be involved in organizing this COSI, please talk to Nuria or myself. You can also contact us. So we have all the different ways to contact us. But please take the chance to talk to Nuria or myself. We'll have another community session, I think, tomorrow. We have another half hour like this, where we have some time to discuss. So if you have some other thoughts or want to discuss something else that you think should be discussed with the community at large, just let us know. We just put it up. You can also stand up if you want to present an issue that you think affects this community. By all means, this is an open platform. We want to hear your feedback. And we want you to be involved. So this is not something that 4 people run. We want anybody who wants to make this a better COSI next year. Please get involved. Just let us know. You'll be in the organizing calls. We have monthly calls, I guess. So it's just a short call. We have them 15 minutes usually because nothing comes up. If there are more people, there is more work that we can do. So please join. So with this, thank you all very much for joining the first day of Bio-Ontologies. And I hope you have a good evening. See you tomorrow morning for our second invited speaker. After the big keynote, we have a second invited speaker, Karen Slater. And then we have a number of very exciting additional talks at Bio-Ontologies. Thank you very much.